Welcome to qnawire.
Okay, we know that a sample of oxygen occupies 75 liters and that the pressure is 1 atmosphere. Okay, and what we're told is that the volume will double to 150 liters. And the question is, what is the new pressure? Right? And this would then assume that N and T remain the same throughout, right? We're not changing the number of moles of gas. We're not changing the temperature of the system. All we're doing is taking our sample of gas and putting it in twice as large a container. What happens to the pressure? Well, this is where we use a derivative of PV equals nRT that has to do with change, where we say P1 times V1, that's original pressure times original volume, will equal the final pressure times the final volume, P2 times V2. And that's to say that the product of pressure and volume, supposing we do not change N or T, will always remain a constant. How does this bear out? Well, it's actually somewhat intuitive. We're interested in what P2 is, right? That's the only thing we don't know, which means we can take this equation and use algebra to solve for P2. How do we do that? Well, we'll divide both sides by V2 so that we'll lose V2 on the right-hand side because these will cancel. And we'll be left with P1 times V1 over V2 equals P2. And then we can plug our values that we were given, because we know P1, we know V1, and we know V2 into this equation. And what we'll find is something pretty nice. I'm actually going to write this in a different way. I'm going to say P2 equals P1. I'm going to factor the P1 out of the fraction, and then I'm going to say times V1 over V2. Because really what we're saying is that P1 will change proportional to the ratio between V1 and V2. Well, we know that V1 over V2, since it doubled, is equal to half, right? That's saying 75 over 150, right? So P2 is going to be equal to half of V1 over V2, right? Or, half of P1, right? Meaning our pressure will decrease by half, or our pressure will be half. So we'll go from 1 atmosphere. What's half of 1 atmosphere? It's half an atmosphere. To 0.5 atmosphere. And that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Our volume doubled, so our pressure halved, right? That's like saying when we do P1 V1 equals P2 V2, that if we're maintaining the ratio of pressure and volume, or the product of ratio pressure and volume, if we multiply V by something, we have to divide P by that same amount. Here we multiplied V by 2, so we have to divide P by 2 to keep the pressure times volume product from changing. Right? So we double the volume, we have to have the pressure, otherwise the system doesn't really obey the laws of physics. So 1/2 atmosphere.